Sure. So my pick is the 2007 Brazilian crime film Tropa de Elite or Elite Squad. This is José Padilha's second film. It really put him on the map, and as I'll be repeating a few times, how obscenely popular this movie and its sequel were. It's based on semi nonfiction novel by Luis Eduardo Soares, co-authored by two ex-BOP officers, Andre Batista and Rodrigo Pimentel. Pimentel has co-writing credits on the movie as well, and I think he was like on set in an advisory capacity, like if you want to like accurately portray, the BOP culture. Both of those ex-officers were censured, and they had their lifetime pensions threatened. And there was some really serious legal saber rattling, but I think they got off okay because of their involvement in the book and this movie. Because the state government for Rio and the PMERG really hates the book and these movies because they view them as slanderous and libelous and how negatively they portray the police institution. So whatever your impressions about the movie are, again, when we get to it, whether it's, authoritarian or not, but state government of Rio hates these things. The main screenplay is written by Braulio Mantovani, who also wrote the screenplay for City of God. So we have that, starring Andre Romero, Caio Junqueira, and Wagner Moura, who really exploded in global popularity in 2014's Narcos as Pablo Escobar. The TV show is also produced and directed by José Padilha, so bit of grandfathered in there. And Mauro was he was a known figure in Brazilian cinema, but he was like a mid-lister character actor in soap operas and comedies, and really overnight this movie made him an alpha male rock star sex symbol in Brazil. Again, can't understate the level of popularity. So the film takes place in 1997 with the historical context of Pope John Paul II's papal visit to Rio. It follows two fresh greenhorn police officers and their travails dealing with the hopelessly corrupt institutions. And then Mora plays Captain Nascimento, who is a member of BOP, the titular elite squad. If I can wrap my mouth around this Portuguese, the Batalhão de Operações Policiais Especiais. And I think every developed country has something like this, some tactical police unit that has military training and military hardware. These are not the police that are going to be sitting at an intersection getting their daily quota of speeding tickets and then going home. These are really serious people that you call in for a serious threat. And there's a whole lot of that in Rio, or at least in the context of this film. So, yeah, I'll lay my cards on the table and say I watched both this movie and its sequel in a pretty dry academic context, in a seminar where I was expected to be writing lengthy essays about it. This was not I can't wait to watch this movie about how awful the police are in Rio. And despite how critically lauded it was in Brazil and popular, and even though it won the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival in the year it was released, it is very polarizing negative reactions from beyond Brazil, where is it I'll be blunt, fascistic propaganda where this sort of brutal shoot first, ask questions later, authoritarianism is portrayed as a good thing, the solution to deal with the criminal element in Rio. This is from Jay Weisberg's Variety article that the movie is a one-note celebration of violence for good that plays like a recruitment film for fascist thugs. And I have a lot of Portuguese interviews from Padilha and Mantovani where they're talking about, we made an anti-cop film that was very critical of the state institutions, but in the popular zeitgeist of Brazil, I think it was maybe accepted in the the complete opposite direction. And it creates this weird dissonance where sometimes it's like schizophrenic, like it's maybe one way or the other. And this isn't me being rhetorical or cute. Like I genuinely don't know. So yeah, what do you guys think? If I trying to interpolate you in this brutal pro-police film, or
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was my general like question about it. Is essentially like what were the filmmakers like intending to do with this? Just because like to me, like everyone in this movie sucks.
yeah,
And so yes, I was curious if that was purposeful and the intent of it, or not. Because yeah, I would say it's very much an anti-cop movie, and that was I think that was kind of the highlight of it. For me, it was just how just like how like bad these guys got. It really has like to me the U.S. comparisons that I thought of were essentially were Training Day and The Shield, where these BOPE guys, like they're not necessarily like corrupt or anything, but they're very much just like in it for the violence, and like anyone they deem even tangential to the drug trade or lawlessness or something, just like needs to be like eliminated in the most extreme like measures possible. It's pretty wild.
Certainty of Nascimento's perspective, where it's like if you're a normal cop, you're automatically dirty. If you're just living in the favelas, you're probably party to the drug trade. NGO, like government organization, obviously a corrupt front for something. If you're a college student, obviously you're funding the drug trade. Like if you're not a member of our tiny tribe, like you're just like on the hit list.
Yeah, and then they get even get into like the training or whatever, where it's just like how is that's one of those like personal things that always give me like how is this helpful of like making them like eat terrible things and get constantly like battered. It's like how does that like translate to not not breaking under pressure or whatever. It's so it doesn't seem like the proper correlation is there at all.
Like, how does that make you? It seems more like a brainwashing exercise,
Right, exactly,
just breaking down their will and making them utterly subservient to your orders, rather than making you an effective police officer.
Yeah,
it's a hard movie to get a read on, because like I kind of believe the director that it wasn't intended as propaganda, because his previous documentary was about how I think someone held up a bus or something.
Bus 174,
Yeah, Bus 174, and it was about how this small-time thief became more and more violent because of sort of institutional brutality. So it seems like he's aware that things are more complicated than good versus bad. And I feel like if he wanted to make a propaganda, he would have made the drug dealers worse. He would have shown scenes of people suffering from drug addiction. He would have shown the drug dealers doing worse things or torturing people. But it's really, there is that scene where they burn someone in a tire. That's pretty horrific. But it's sort of just as bad as what the cops do. Like, it shows the cops engaging in just as vicious torture as the criminals. So they're not necessarily made heroic by contrast. To me, it just seems like this is the story of like how violence begets violence, or like if you respond with violence, this is what you get. You get the police just turning into another, even worse gang, and the city you're meant to police and protect just becomes occupied territory. And like, I don't know, it's hard to read. So I think there was an intention, and then there was a result, and the result was the audiences were cheering the police. As avenging angels against these vicious criminals, and sort of, I guess it kind of postures the intellectual community as being sort of wishy-washy and apologizing for criminality. You know, the professor says the police brutalize people who have no choice but to commit crimes. Like that seems like it's setting up a straw man for the audience to root against and root for the sort of the rugged action that the police take against this obviously bad situation. You know, like the liberals haven't got anything done. Now we need, He-Men to go and fix things. But of course, they don't fix things. They just torture and kill people. So they haven't fixed anything institutionally, or sort of, I don't know. And like the idea that this lawyer in training is so motivated by justice and the law and bringing down drugs. Like, I feel like, well, one, that's hypocritical because you're going in and killing people, for doing nothing. You're killing lookouts, like unarmed kids. How is that in keeping with the rules of law? It feels like he's picking and choosing which laws to follow and carry out. I don't know. Like, I can't get a read on it.
So I have both of these. I mean, we can continue, but these are Portuguese interviews with the Estadão. And I put these through Google Translate, so I think the gist of it's there, but I'm not quoting like Padilha verbatim on this. So, in Elite Squad, for example, Captain Nascimento's exposure is clearly critical. The character serves to show the defects of police that tortures and kills. The film also shows the unviability of Nascimento's life. He can't even keep his family cohesive. However, the character somehow became the greatest pop culture phenomenon of Brazilian cinema and praised by the press as a hero. I think it's important to distinguish the difference between hero and pop culture icon. Nascimento is certainly not a hero. Compare him, for example, to Don Corleone. He's a charismatic character with popular appeal, though he's still a murderous mobster. In other cultures, there are thousands of pop culture icons that are violent with crooked morals. It's a sporadic, strange phenomenon that happens in cinema. He tortures innocent people and kills people that he should actually arrest. He does not have the moral virtues that common sense requires of a hero. So that's like from the mouth of the director. But when things are framed with like all these montages of violence and, torture with rock music in the background, it's maybe a little weird.
Yeah, that's true. It's meant to be exciting. As morally ambiguous as it is, it's framed as a music video. I think there was sort of trends in American cinema as well, where kind of these fascist anti-heroes became really popular in the 70s, like Dirty Harry and Death Wish with Charles Bronson. And it coincided with these kind of surges in urban crime during the 70s and the 80s, the crack epidemic, things like that. This feeling that society was decaying and crumbling and the criminals were running rampant and politicians were doing nothing about it, and the system was ineffective to address this problem in society. Whether that's true or not, or whether it was drummed up by media, crime was certainly much higher in the 70s and the 80s in the US, to the point where it created the conditions where characters like this were really popular and cheered. Whether or not that was intended by the director, it obviously hit on some kind of nerve, social fear that these people were not doing things by the book, but kind of waging war on behalf of everyday people. So maybe it's a similar situation with this movie, where the film wasn't meant to show them as heroes, but because maybe crime is so bad or perceived as really bad for a lot of audiences, maybe they, cheer characters like this, even if they can't square all of their ideals. They just they cheer them because it seems like they're on their side rather than the criminals. I don't know. It's very sort of bleak idea, like, well, he's a bad guy, but at least he's our bad guy. He's punishing them and not us. I don't know. It's very Wild West, I guess.
McConaughey in True Detective, like, we keep the other bad men from the door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's very reactionary. It's like the current system is weak. We've been made to feel weak, so we need someone strong and ruthless to, set things right again. And that's probably all propaganda and ideology, but it works, I think.
Right, yeah.
And it's interesting that it works. It worked at a certain point in America, and it works in Brazil, I think, because people perceive the system as broken. Crime is rampant. corruption is rampant. The system that's meant to protect us is failing. Again, that's the perception. I think that lionizes characters like this, even if they're not meant to be seen as champions of justice and the common man. They become it, and they become it in part through stylizing and making them seem cool and using video and cool edits and cool lines.
Badass one-liners.
It's kind of the director kind of wants his cake. He wants to eat his cake and have it too.
Yeah. Put him on the Pope's tab before you just execute someone. It's a crazy line.
Well, that's the thing. It's not even that they want to fix things for its own sake. They just want to fix things so it looks good to the Pope, so the Pope doesn't complain about it. It's so unambitious, I guess, this crusade.
Yeah, I have it in the notes, but this similar phenomenon was going on during the Rio Olympics. Like suddenly, Brazil is on the global stage, and we need to make sure there's no problems. Like there's pictures you can see of beyond the Olympic Village, both black-clads on armored personnel carriers. It's like they're defending a green zone in the middle of a war-ravaged city or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Happy faces. Everyone's smiling.
Right.
But there's such an again, the movie just I can't get a read on it because there's such a deep hypocrisy in sort of waging this torture and indiscriminate murder in order to set the stage for the Pope. You just can't square those two motivations.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was definitely some things I like, some things just didn't about the film. Obviously the central character of Wagner Moura is a very magnetic actor and performance. Similar to what we did with Escobar. And I liked the kind of the other supporting character of Matthias and his journey of just becoming angrier and angrier and just growing to just hate everyone and being pulled essentially into this cult thing and his journey and transformation kind of just from a poor aspiring lawyer into just this hardcore SWAT member culminating in the end with the shotgun revenge. I thought it was a great journey. But yeah, I agree that I really did not like the narration in this movie.
So here's a big bombshell. This movie infamously had a pre-production leak where the whole movie was available, and the original cut of the film did not have any Wagner Moura narration, but they liked him so much that they added all that so he could have more to do. And I wonder how the film plays without it's oppressive, seeing Matthias curse out all these people and being awful, dressed in black. These people had a peaceful protest, and then Nascimento's narration, he was turning into a real dope man.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, yeah, he was insulting. Yeah, I mean, he was just constantly insulting those students. Just kind of these rich, oblivious, college students. Just insulting them left and right with every narration. Where it's just he's smoking a joint. He has to be eliminated. They must be locked up and eliminated, and just all this war on drugs nonsense. It was crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't take their name seriously, Bope. I just kept thinking of a dog, booping a dog's nose. What did you think of in class? They spent at least 3 scenes talking about Foucault. What was the point of that?
Well, again, I'll lay my cards on the table. I've only read all the volumes, history of sexuality. I have not read Discipline and Punishment, so I do not have that.
I haven't read it either. I've only read things about Foucault. But again, it seemed to be the director nodding, yeah, see, that we're all part of a structure where the police are sort of just as exploited and,
servants of status. Yeah.
Yeah, moved and controlled by ideological structures in this kind of war. They're expected to behave. They police themselves and they police their own minds to behave a certain way. And the second half of the film is about conditioning the mind to behave a certain way, which is all very Foucaultian. I don't know.
It's maybe a bit on the nose.
Yeah, but again, it's like it's teasing. Like, is it fascist or is it a depiction of a fascist system? Who knows? I feel like I would. This is a weird thing to say. I feel like I would have enjoyed the film if it was more fascist. Like if it made the criminals more villainous, like Death Wish, and you could
or
sort
like
of you
a
could
Starship
actually
Troopers.
yeah, or yeah. So either make it satirical or make it like just reactionary nonsense, like schlocky nonsense, like Death Wish, where you know it's bad, but you can at least cheer at how silly and violent it is. Like, and I can cheer like a bad guy getting killed, even if I don't think that's a reflection of the real world. But it's sort of it was somewhere in the middle where it just wasn't quite as entertaining. Like there was some entertaining moments, and the final shot, shotgun blast to the head, cut to credits with a rock song. It's pretty entertaining, but the rest of it, it was a little bit dry at points, unfortunately.
I was kind of surprised at the sudden transition into the training, where it just felt very
Full Metal Jacket interlude.
Yeah.
There's this like horrifying anagnorisis where it's like these are just cops. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
and it's like repeated so often. It's like they're the three types of cops, and those who engage in war, like we're going to war. They need to be trained for war. Like the chanting songs about fighting subversive guerrillas, and it's like,
yeah, exactly. You're meant to police community. You're meant to be keepers of peace. You're training for battle. You're killing people, anyone you see. I think again, it's The Wire. It's Bunny Coven's speech about once you start training people to be soldiers, the community is just, the neighborhoods you're policing are just occupied territory. The whole system is corrupt, and they're just kind of like unwitting participants in that. But yeah, the brainwashing stuff is where it gets really scary, because it's like, whoa, maybe you think you have things in control, but what happens when you're gone? And these are just highly trained assassins with no leadership, no moral compass. Do they just become the new drug lords? And it's almost more scary that they're not corrupt. They're like fanatics. It's like, because you can understand a corrupt police officer, all they want is money. But these guys have like almost a religious dedication to killing drug dealers.
Suarde's novel, like even as negative, I mean, it's like more nonfiction. Like these were the accounts of these officers. This is what it's like. Like he argues, like they're incorruptible. They can't be bought off by politicians or the other police militias or the drug cartels. Like, but they have zero oversight. Internal affairs doesn't go anywhere near BOPE because they're too scared of them. Like.
It's like the Terminator. He cannot be reasoned with. He cannot be spoken to. He will absolutely not stop until you are dead. It's
it's that old.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's that all concept of just like perceived like absolute justice, where it's just like if you take that route all the way to the end, like this is what you get as justice, where it's just like everyone just gets wiped out.
Yeah, this is the logical conclusion.
Yeah,
everyone's dead.
Yeah, as a random side note, I will say my favorite scene in the movie, and I found it to be like comedic too, was kind of the leaders of BOPE just sitting around the table discussing the recruits coming in as to like who might make it at the end of the training. I found
who do we know is already corrupt, so we're just gonna beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, like I found it like entertaining, and it was like kind of like the one, I feel like the one like human moment of them just kind of like hanging out, shooting the shit, and also just like planning how this training was gonna go, and it was like comedic and stuff, even though it's obviously kind of within their in their like cult brainwashing type stuff too. But I really enjoyed just kind of the dialogue back and forth of that scene.
also kind of flippant, but my partner's
Right, yeah.
finishing her MA in creative writing, and often I'm saddled with being the beta reader and copy editor, unpaid. If I was reading something like about a dystopian society and like the authoritarian police, like, well, their personal sigil was like a skull with a knife in it, my feedback would be, it's like maybe a bit too unsubtle. Could we tone that down? And boom, it's like, subtlety, what's that?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Lord.
Oh, yeah. It's like that Mitchell and Webb clip. Are we the bad guys?
Are we the beds?
Are we the baddies?
Hans, we've got skulls on our caps.
And apparently the sequel was like the most successful, highest grossing film in Brazilian history. Is that true still?
I think maybe for like gross sales at this point, but I'm sure some Marvel superhero has outpaced it for gross revenue.
Okay. Elite.
But yeah, again,
enemy with-
obscene cultural phenomenon like popularity.
It's fascinating.
If you guys had morbid curiosity or enjoyed this one, like, you might try the sequel, because I think it's still gnarly in the same way, but it has a thematic political clarity that this first movie lacks.
Okay.
And
Whoa.
spoiler alert, Nascimento gets divorced and does not repair his relationship with his wife.
Yeah,
So all the like
unsurprising.
miserable work he was doing to like retire and be happy comes to nothing.
Yeah.
No.
Even that, like he yells at his wife and they never make up. Like, if they wanted to make him sympathetic, that would, I don't know, they would have had a makeup scene, or they would have had some kind of reconciliation. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know how he's seen as a hero, or is he just sort of, is that just, he's just a man, he's just living on the edge. I don't know how it's seen by people who love him.
Mara has this incredible body language where it's like he's lolling his head like a rabid dog, like wagging his finger in someone's face, and like it's maybe like silly when it's against the aspirant recruits, but I mean we don't see like any physical violence, but just seeing that body language deployed against his wife, like just immediately clench up, tense back in my chair, like so uncomfortable.
No, it's a great physical performance, and like you see it at the beginning where he's sort of twitching nervously before a raid, and then he's kind of beating up and slapping one of the drug dealers, and you get that sense. And later in the scene with the wife, that he's just got this sort of animalistic rage inside him that he tries to harness, but sometimes he just can't control it. And it's when he can't direct it, like he can sort of channel it in what he sees productive ways, but
air quotes, sublimating it healthily.
Yeah, ultimately it just poisons who he is.
I had no idea he was Brazilian until I saw this.
You just assume he was like Hispanic of
Right, yeah, I just assumed, from some Spanish country or the other, whatever South American country.
What is he does he star in American films?
No, well, just when I saw him as Pablo Escobar in
Narcos.
Narcos. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know if you've watched it, but it's an incredible performance.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah,